Good morning. Welcome to the second day of TDX. I am so thrilled to have this conversation with you, along with my incredible colleague, Joshua Schneier. Today, we are going to be telling you guys a little bit about an introduction to Prompt Builder, which is a product that not only we are intimately familiar with, but that we've helped build. So we're really excited to tell you all a little bit more about what that looks like, how it's going to add a little bit more value to your day-to-day, and then most importantly, we're going to get the opportunity to hear from you. Hear any questions you have, any comments you have. We're going to be leaving that for the end. So any thoughts that you want to share with us, this is our favorite part of our jobs, which is getting to hear that feedback and making sure that any of those insights we're incorporating into our next deliverables. And one thing I'm sure you'll hear, you've heard probably a lot, is that with the advent of Agentforce and AI at Salesforce, we ship really fast. So the hope is none of you will have to wait for a lot of the exciting developments that we have. With that being said, I want to now go into my favorite part of these presentations, which is a forward-looking statement. We're going to be talking about some aspirational work that's going to happen, maybe some roadmap work. So please make sure that you're engaging purchasing decisions based off of currently available information. Also very important, coffee on us. Like we said, we really value all of your feedback. So the first 800 people who provide feedback to us on this session will get a free $5 Starbucks gift card, in addition to hopefully an even better product that you'll have based off of that feedback. Before we start talking about what Prompt Builder is, and don't worry, we're going to get really deep into the nitty-gritty of how to demonstrate it, what it looks like, I want to establish why it's so important for the enterprise use case to utilize and have a prompt. At a high level, and this is oriented towards both the developers in our audience, but also maybe people who are business users who haven't had the opportunity to go super deep into AI, there is a series of steps in the Gen AI tech stack. There is the information that you are leveraging in order to power the insights that you're getting, and that can look like an ERP, that can look like Workday, that can look like Salesforce itself. Something important to call out here, by the way, is that that information can very frequently be segregated. It's not necessarily all in one place. And quite candidly, that can add an increased amount of overhead when it comes to using that information to make predictions or generate insights. Second is the model itself. This is the crux of what is going to use that information in order to give you some type of output. Now, you've probably heard this before here at Salesforce, but that output can be predictive. We have a series of information from before, what's going to happen next, or it can be generative. For example, the creation of an email based off of a template that's personalized to a specific customer. The important factor here is that these models can come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes. For example, if you work in a regulated industry, you cannot just take ChatGPT and use that as your tool of choice when creating these outputs. In fact, many of our regulated customers have pointed out that they need to natively create these models or make their own version of them in order to make sure that they're compliant with a whole litany of external and internal regulations. The reason that's important is because that is another factor that prompts are going to plug into, and I'll talk about that in a second. But before I do, though, I want to talk about the UI. And the reason why this is important is because for us as developers, we are used to getting into the nitty-gritty of how these tools work, how to manipulate them, and how to maximize their value. But the question that we are always asking is, who are we doing that for? And very frequently, the business users that are requiring this type of insight don't have the time and don't yet have the skills to dive as deep as we are into this technology. In order to make all of the work that we are doing and that you are doing pay off for those business users, we have to make sure that the insights from those models, based off of that data, is surfaced in a business user-friendly way. The barrier to entry should be as minimal as possible to getting that done. Now, the reason why I'm going through this tech stack right now is because prompts lie at the center of that. Prompts are the core of what allows us at Salesforce to give that experience across generative AI in the enterprise. Now, what does that mean? It means that the prompt gives the instruction to the large language model that you've selected. And it can be plug and play too, which is super important. You're not tied down to a specific model. What's more, you're not tied down to a specific data source either. Whether all of your data is in CRM, which I would love to hear, or whether it's federated across a litany of different platforms, which is probably the way that it works in most enterprise use cases, you are able to use factors like our zero-copy ecosystem in Data Cloud to use that information as an answer to prompt questions. So stepping back for a moment, we have a prompt. We have a lot of information that that prompt is now using from different data sources, and we can put it into a language model of your choice. All of this can then get surfaced in a next-generation user interface. Now, what does that mean? It means that while we, as developers, are getting incredibly deep into how these prompts work and making sure that they leverage the right data, the output of that for a business user will be seeing those prompts information in a sales email, in a sales forecast, in an escalation to a service agent that has the information that a prompt outputted in the form of a large language model's output with personalized information for a specific customer. That is the mapping from all of the incredible effort that the people in this room make to the benefit and value that it adds to our organizations. And again, we're going to go deeper into exactly what that looks like in a second. But I want to talk a little bit about how we make sure these prompts themselves function in the way that we're talking about. Because it's not entirely trivial. There's a lot of context that goes in behind them. And a really common piece of feedback that we've heard is that on one hand, we want to make sure that there's a certain out-of-the-box element that we can use prompts the way that is as intuitive as, say, using ChatGPT is, but also that configuration is really valuable. And when it comes to the enterprise, the stakes of that configuration are incredibly important. We've actually worked with a marquee hotel chain. I won't say the name, but they have a series of smaller brands under them. Some are very high-end, some are more mid-market, some are what you might call like starter or motel suite in the price range. And for each of those, the brand voice, the vocabulary, the tenor in which they refer to their customers, and how they engage those customers vary significantly. That's an enormous part of their brand equity. The reason I'm telling you about that is because those are all factors that you can configure within prompts. And we're going to show you exactly how to do that in a moment. But I bring this up because making sure that those things, the locale, the style, the tone, are all in line with what your organization expects are really important. I think what might be even more exciting to an audience of developers is the ability to customize more technical factors. Think about things like what the output format looks like. Who here is familiar with JSON by raise of hands? Wouldn't it be great if in more technical use cases, say back-end applications where this information outputted from a prompt is going to another business unit, you could just cut away the fluff and output information that is valuable for that user, for example, bulleted, JSON, et cetera. That is yet another example of output format that we are aiming to provide through prompt parameters. These are all really, really important to us here at Salesforce because being able to engineer these types of variables is a big differentiator for the value of a prompt. One thing that we've heard before is customers don't want the process of creating a prompt by going to a new tab, opening ChatGPT, and asking, how do I make this? And the entire point of providing this balance between configuration and out-of-the-box time to value is making sure that you never have to do that. A, because this is designed to be fast. You'll see how fast in a second. But also because this has information that those out-of-the-box language models don't. And by using that to configure things like brand voice, tone, modality, we are able to rapidly accelerate the value that your organization gets out of them. So now let's talk a little bit more in depth about exactly what it is that we have from a product perspective that's designed to address some of these factors. And I like to divide this conversation into two different sort of boxes. There are prompts and there are prompt templates. A prompt is basically a single time use case that will involve some type of a prompt that you use to send an input to a large language model through our trust layer, and that subsequently will give you an output that you need. So one-time use case might mean it's something where you have a question or you want to get some type of singular output, but you still need to remain compliant with whatever policies your organization has. Here at Salesforce, for example, when I have a question, it'll probably go through this interface because we can't just plug our data into like an open source large language model. Prompt templates, on the other hand, are designed to create consistent and repeatable generative outputs. Raise your hand if your organization has a workflow to create a sales email. Raise your hand if your organization has a workflow to create a service outreach. There we go. And I'm sure that there's all flavors of different types of templates and workflows that your organization uses to orchestrate that type of customer outreach. The important thing here is that synthesizing that orchestration with information that you already have and the dynamic outputs of a large language model is what a prompt template is supposed to do. I'm a service agent, and I want to engage my customer about needing to service their new car, which is actually something I'm long overdue for. In order to do that effectively, I might want to provide information from their car service record and data about who this customer is. Maybe they've missed an appointment in the past, maybe they've moved around, et cetera, et cetera. And most of all, I want to minimize the copy, paste, rote responses that are the bane of every customer's existence that's ever interacted with a bot. That seamless experience is what we deliver through a prompt template. Going even deeper into what this can look like, there is a few different versions of this. There is field generation, which basically means summaries and field values. So a great example of this is like a record summary. I have a Salesforce record, and maybe to pass that information along to someone new who's taking over a case, I want to make sure that they get a summary of that information. I would use a field generation template. And then second are what are called flex templates. This is what I was talking about earlier. This is actually a feature that I've gotten to work on. It's really, really exciting to me, which is the ability to provide information from a variety of different resources, whether that's my ERP, whether that's information in CRM, or somewhere else. You can even have information in an old PDF and upload it and use that information to inform the output of a prompt. Here at Salesforce, we call that grounding a prompt, but I think most customers would probably just call it common sense. And the idea here is that providing that multifaceted engagement is a big part of what makes these flex templates so valuable. And it's something we've heard a ton from our Trailblazer community about. High level, I want to talk a little bit more about what some of that grounding can look like. Raise your hand if you used a flow here. Awesome. So you like flows? You can use flows here too. You can use information from flows to ground your prompts. You can also use flows to invoke a prompt, which is really, really exciting. That means that you can send information to a large language model through a trusted interface in the flow of your orchestration. You can also use CRM fields and reference those fields as a merge field using the prompt, and then have that replaced with real-life data. So what does that look like? Something easy is just customer.firstname, but you can get so much more fancy with that. And if you have things like custom objects or custom metadata, those are all things that you can still refer to within a prompt. You heard about the power of the platform before? That's exactly what it looks like. Data Cloud. Who here has heard of Data Cloud? All right, great, everybody passes. So with Data Cloud, not only can you use our zero-copy ecosystem to read information from other places you might have your data, Snowflake, Workday, what have you, without the overhead of copying it over, but now you can read unstructured data that's stored in Data Cloud in what's called a DMO, or a data model object, or in data graphs, which are relational, I mean, everybody here probably knows, but relational objects that relate different DMOs together. And you can integrate all of that into your prompts as well. If anybody has any questions about how that works, I'm totally happy to answer them. I was fortunate enough to work on that when it first came out. And one of the things that was maybe the most rewarding about that experience is listening to marketer after developer, whether they were a business user or really deep in the weeds, tell us about how this made personalization and outreach so easy at scale. Again, all information that now goes into your prompts. And then of course, APIs. So making callouts to external data sources and integrating that into Prompt Builder. If you want to know more about that, I'm actually having a conversation with Ross Belmont from the External Objects product team at 3:30 to talk more about how external objects integrate more deeply into Salesforce and Prompt Builder in specific. And finally, semantic search. This is something really, really exciting. For anybody that's not familiar, semantic search is basically a fancy way of saying a search that returns results that are similar in meaning as opposed to lexicographic or keyword similarity. So a good example is if I search Apple, it might return red instead of Applebee's, which is probably a more relevant search result anyways. And now we're able to use something called a search retriever, which is basically a semantic or common sense search on a specific set of structured or unstructured data. What does this mean? It means now I can do that search and have the result returned directly in my prompt or prompt template for increased reusability. Embedded prompt templates embedded prompts in the flow of work. This is something we can talk more about in the Q&A, but I just want to emphasize that the way that we use prompts does not just have to be as developers. It can also be something that our business users leverage without even knowing it. So a great example is being able to generate a summary for a sales email or create a product recommendation, which they might do using either field generation or a record summary. And then once again, you can ground your prompts with different types of data. That can be Apex, that can be Flow. You can scan PDFs using MuleSoft's amazing intelligent document processing. And then you can embed that across the platform in any business task, whether that's use in Agentforce, whether that's utilized in an invocable action for LWC, or whether that's used in one of our incredible apps that you might be a developer for. So I would love to tell you more about how to get started, and I'll go through a few brief steps here, but then I'm going to pass it off to Josh to give us a little bit more insight on exactly what this work looks like when we execute, which is I'm sure what you're all here for. The good news here, just to go at a high level, is that we have made it super easy no matter where you are in your enterprise and Gen AI journey to utilize the power of Prompt Builder. Maybe that means that you have Data Cloud and you're doing basic predictive actions on your unstructured data to figure out which AEs are going to meet quota, or figure out which customers are likely to be the best candidates for renewal. Maybe you're even farther along in your journey. Maybe you've already bought Agentforce and you're looking to figure out how to use all of those incredible Einstein requests to power a more turnkey journey for your salespeople. Or, and this is something we hear a lot, maybe it's even bigger than that. Maybe it's a matter of taking that information and using it seamlessly to power a combined sales and service experience. I've sold something to someone using my agent sales development representative. My AE has sold them with it, and I used Einstein credits to prospect the customer. And now I have a service agent making sure that that customer doesn't attrit. At any stages of that journey, we are able to integrate Prompt Builder. And the reason why is because A, Prompt Builder can be embedded in each of those use cases as a prompt template, and B, because it's designed to be easily customizable or configurable by all of you. For example, being able to take data that an agent has and then integrate it into the output of a prompt template. Hey, account executive, this customer is at risk with this customer replaced by the CRM name record. Here's what you need to do to address it. Things like that are a few of the many examples that add a ton of business value, no matter where your organization is in this experience. I want to stop talking and start doing, though, so I'm going to pass it over to Josh to demonstrate for us what this looks like for developers like you. Josh?
Thanks, Ruben. All right, so again, thanks everyone for coming out to TDX. We love having you guys here. Let's take a look at Prompt Builder. I kind of want to start at the beginning. Oops, are we looking at the right screen here, guys? Sorry. Do we need to? Oh, maybe I need to pause that. Sorry, we're stuck on the presentation. I'm trying to get to the browser.
We're trying to switch screens. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Just one moment while we get this org pulled up. And while we're doing this, I can just kind of restate. Ruben gave us a lot of good insight about how Prompt Builder fits into so many pieces of the Salesforce platform. And no matter what generative AI capability we're looking at the end of the day, we have a prompt that's going to a large language model to get a response back. And Prompt Builder is how we create those prompts. So we know at Salesforce, we can work really hard as product folks and developers to try to come up with what we think you need. But there's a reason why we have custom objects and custom fields and custom page layouts, is because we know that you're going to need to modify these things to suit your own needs. Prompt Builder is the Salesforce platform solution that allows you to customize and tune prompts for any use case. So when we get into the demo here, I kind of want to start with some of the basics. I have some nice bite-sized vignettes that show you how Prompt Builder works and what it can do. I like to try to keep things simple, with the Acme account and some widgets and things like that, rather than getting too in-depth into a whole rainbow of a use case. We can really look at some nuts and bolts stuff, which I think really helps provide some information that you can take back and work with. So just a moment, we'll get this pulled up. Yeah, I was going to switch between both of those. I don't know if we can just share the whole output.
This is how you know it's real.
Right. So can I ask how many folks have actually had some time to get hands-on with Prompt Builder? Okay, just a few. That's good. I'm glad some of us have had that, but also this is really supposed to be an intro. So we're going to start at the beginning, so you're in the right place if you haven't had a chance to really get much time with your hands on the keyboard. Oh, it looks like we have a little bit coming over. Yeah, our projector doesn't like us too much today, but we'll get this sorted. Thank you all for your patience. We restart or? If we don't have to go back into the slide deck, can we just kind of start over with whatever output I know I think we were messing with the trying to get the speaker notes or whatnot, but if we can just start from scratch with the output. Okay, so we've got one there, and we need to get the other.
You want the other one back?
The other browser. Yeah, I need both of those browser windows. I mean,
Here or there?
It doesn't have to be. As long as it's on the screen, as long as folks can see it, we're fine.
Is that what you want to see right now?
The other browser window, actually. So this is Prompt Builder, by the way. we'll get into this part in a minute. Yikes. Well, we definitely have a Prompt Builder demo station upstairs. If we're unable to get through enough of this, I just definitely want to encourage everyone to come by and stop in. We kind of got the little kiosks upstairs where we have different demo stations. We do have some Prompt Builder space carved out, so please feel free to drop by, regardless of how much we're able to get through. We'd love to have you up there, see some of this. Maybe just. Let's see here.
one of the ones that's already here?
Hang on a second, let me see.
Yeah. 'Cause I can't even get it back into pure mode right now.
Yeah, I wanted this guy, and then I wanted to go back and forth between. Does something go full screen?
Yeah,
I think
it's
both.
because we're set and extended, it's getting confused which one you want where, basically.
Okay. Can we just do straight mirror?
Yeah, if you can get to it right here and then go to, that's what we want. Couldn't get that up earlier. So now you should.
All right.
We'll just take away your notes there, and then you should
That's
be able
fine.
to get to everything. Yeah.
This is what we need. Perfect.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Okay. Sorry for the delays there. Let's take a look at some prompt builders. So we'll move kind of quick. I'm watching the clock, and I'll try to make sure we hit all the points. So let's start with some of the basics. Basic use case, sales email, right? We talked about that a minute ago. A lot of folks have to deal with that. This is actually one of the first features that we released for Prompt Builder. I'm on a contact record here. I'm on a contact record for Ed Stamos. If I go ahead and launch our Salesforce email composer, I've got this draft with Einstein button down at the bottom. And this is handy. I can click this. I can either type in, kind of do an ad hoc prompt of what I want to accomplish, or I can use some pre-made instructions. These are some prompt templates that our sales team has created, or our CRM team has created, that come out of the box with Sales for Einstein. If I want to use one of these, let's say I'll take the check-in. It'll pull some information, and it's actually running a prompt in the background, and it wrote this email for me, which is pretty cool. So let's see how this actually works. What powers this? This is where we will come into Prompt Builder. This is the Prompt Builder interface. This is in setup. This is our list view. This is kind of the home for Prompt Builder. And we can see a list of both standard and custom prompts that have been created, and we'll dig into both of these. So let's take a look at that check-in template. So this is the one I just invoked from the sales email composer. And we can see here the basic anatomy of a prompt. And we'll actually start creating some of these, and I'll show you how to actually use this. But up above in this workspace, this is where we have the instructions. This is where we are telling the large language model what we want it to do and giving it some context. Here, you are a sales executive, and your name is. And we see some of these things that look an awful lot like merge fields, if you're familiar with building formulas. That's really kind of what they are. We have a lot of different ways we can get that what we call grounding information into a prompt, whether it be something simple like pulling a merge field or using a flow, which we'll take a look at in a moment. And these instructions really tell the large language model what we want to do. So let's actually create one of these from scratch and see how that works. So I'll come here and select New Prompt Template. And we've got some different template types. So depending on the use case that your template's intended for, we have a number of template types that come out of the box. And that has to do with the different types of inputs that you can bring in and some of the canned instructions that might be in the background to make sure it does its thing. But we're going to start with sales email. And guess what? A sales email is going to help us write that sales email and show up in the composer. So maybe we'll just create something called work order status. We don't need to set anything else. We're going to send this to a contact. We don't need to pass anything else in. We'll keep this simple for the moment. So here I am now in Prompt Builder with the blank workspace. And I'll start by typing some instructions. I'll say, write an email to. Well, who do I want to send this to? This is where I'm going to go up and access the resource picker. And this is where a lot of the grounding magic happens for Prompt Builder. This is where you can pull in information that helps give context to every prompt. And these placeholders, this is what makes a prompt template a template, right? This is what makes it reusable. Because every time we run it, these merge fields are going to get populated with different values. It's just like running a formula. So I'm going to tell the language model, I want to send this to recipient, which is a contact that we saw on the way in, and I just want to use their name here. Send an email to this person. This is going to be the simplest template you'll ever write. And we'll say, provide status on the following work orders. So we need to give us some information on work orders that are open. So this is really where we get into some of that cool stuff with kind of connecting the dots with merge fields. So if I start with the recipient, this is going to be a contact. I scroll down through all their fields here. I start getting down to some good stuff. I've got their account ID. I can jump over into the account related to this contact. And once I'm in here, if I come all the way down to the bottom of my account, I can see I've got related lists. So work order is a custom object that I created, just threw a few records in. And when I select this, I'm basically going to pull in an entire related list all at once. This is real simple. So if we go ahead and save this guy, and we'll try this for our friend Ed Stamos. We can do a preview down here. And this preview section down below is pretty important for Prompt Builder. This is what allows you to, oops, come on. This is what allows you to test these prompt templates, which is really important. So I can select in that record picker there anything that this template needs to be fed in order to run properly. So here we need to feed it a contact. So if I hit the preview button, we can see two things are going to come back. On the left here is the resolution. This is where we actually go grab all that grounding information. We populate those merge fields. We get those related lists. In a second, we'll see how we can grab a flow. And this is what we actually send to the large language model. We can see I grab the related list, and we're kind of putting some syntax around this just to keep all the fields separate. And over here on the right in the response, we can see this is the email that got composed. With just a few lines and a few clicks, we were able to create this reusable template, which is pretty handy. We can also try, on this side, playing around with some different large language models. And they all can kind of have a different flavor and different character. And we support a lot of models out of the box. We even let you bring your own. So let's try a different model here. And we'll preview this. All right, looks good. So let's go ahead and try this out. If I can activate this. And I'll go back over to Ed, refresh that. And now we open up our email composer, draft with Einstein. Oops, hang on, one more refresh. I think that was activating. And we now have that custom template available that we just created. So it now shows up in the consuming feature. So that template type was a sales email. Once we activate that, it shows up as a sales email. So pretty cool there. All right, let's take a look at another use case here. Again, I'm watching the clock to make sure we get through some of the good stuff. So let's create a new prompt template. I have a field, I'll show you this, I have a field on account called open case summary. I want to populate this with information about cases that are open. I kind of want to provide a snapshot view to the folks that are working with this account. Come back over to Prompt Builder. I'm going to choose the flex type. And the flex type really belongs to you, our customers. This is the $C of prompt templates. This is fully custom for your use cases. So if I call this TDX case summary, we're going to define what needs to go into this prompt template. And down here at these sources, these are the inputs, right? So in this case, I'm going to be starting with an account. That's going to be my jumping off point. I'm going to give this prompt template an account, and then I want it to go figure out how to summarize some cases. So I'm going to give it an account. We're going to choose the account object. Now, we also have the ability to pull in free text as an option. If I had Data Cloud set up, I'd be able to pull in DMOs. We have a lot of different ways that we can define these inputs. But let me just clear that one out for now. We'll keep this simple. I'm going to say, write a short summary of cases below. Now, in that last example, I went and I grabbed that whole related list of work orders, right? Maybe in this case, I just want to look at open cases or escalated cases. I want to be a little bit more selective. I want to go out and grab a specific set of grounding data. And fortunately, I love these moments when the Salesforce platform comes together, when we have tools and services that let you do what you need, that were already there for you. So in this case, let's take a look at creating a flow that can get the information we need. So if we come over into flows, create a new flow, start from scratch. There's this relatively new option called a template-triggered prompt flow. And this is a special kind of flow. So whenever a prompt template runs, it can call out to one of these flows. It says, hey, flow, go run, you get all that grounding data, assemble it, and then bring it back to me so I can drop it into my prompt before I send it to the LLM. So we're not going to start from scratch. I've got one that's a little bit pre-baked here. And this is a template-triggered prompt flow that I created that starts from bringing in an account. And what this does is you can see I got this little loop here, and it gets the open cases for a given account. So here, and if I go to edit this, I can see, give me cases where closed equals false. So this is where I can start applying some criteria to make sure I get just the grounding information I want. This is where I'm using the existing Power Flow to go out and just get a specific set of records that I want. And this action here, for those who are familiar with Flow, this is where we add prompt instructions. So once our flow is run, and we've pulled all the data. Maybe we've stashed it in some variables in the flow. Now we need to package that up and so it can go back into the prompt template. And I'm just going to show you one thing here. I'm going to grab one more piece of information for my cases. I want the description. So I'm looping through these cases, and maybe I forgot to add the description. I'll add that in there. It's great. We'll save that. So what I've done here is I'm going through and I'm grabbing the case number, and I threw in the pointer to the case number. I'm grabbing the case status, etc. So we can actually debug this here, and oops, I want to save that. We can debug this here in Flow Builder and see what we're going to send back over to prompt. And if I run this for Acme, this will run. All right, my org is slow for us today. I apologize. All right. Well, in the interest of time, I might just move on here. When this finishes running the debug, you'll just see how it went through that loop and it pulled in all that case information. If we go back over into the prompt template we're creating, we can see in that resource picker, remember this is where we pull in that data. If it's something as simple as a merge field or something as complex as a flow, I can go and grab that flow, that open case details flow. So I can save this here. And we can kind of actually, we can do the debugging here as well in a way, where now I'm going to run this as Acme, it's going to call the flow, and we'll see what we get back. Now it's nice to be able to debug it over in the flow, but we can see the output here, remember, in that resolution pane. So we'll preview that and hope this comes back a little bit quicker. Here it came back. So I said here, write a short summary of the cases below, and we can see that flow executed. It looped through and it grabbed that information and brought it back as grounding, which is pretty neat. And now I was able to have the LM author this summary for me. So this is great, but how do I actually do something with this? I mean, I got to get this out of Prompt Builder somehow. So a neat thing about prompt templates, I'm going back into Flow here, is that one way you can think about them is a prompt template is in a way just an invocable action. You can call for the execution of a prompt template using our invocable action framework based on whatever your needs are, whatever triggering event. So in this flow, anytime I am updating, this is an automatic flow, anytime where's my start criteria here? Anytime a case is created or updated, I'm going to run this flow. And this flow is going to call the prompt that we just wrote, and then it's going to update that field on the account. So if I come back into Acme, I don't have anything here in my open case summary. Oops. If I come into cases here, let's edit one of these guys. Let's escalate this. Status, escalated. We save that. So now anytime a case record is touched, that flow fires. It's going to call the prompt template and drop the results back into my record. So if I come back to Acme, we'll see that case summary field got populated. So this really shows you some of the great ways that you can use Prompt Builder across the platform. Like I said, I really want to kind of show a nuts and bolts demo of how Prompt Builder works and how you can use it in just some of the basic ways in the platform. We get into agents, this gets a lot more powerful. We can do a lot more creative things, but I'd like to try to focus on just some of the groundwork. Now, I've got about a minute left. There was just a couple things I wanted to show you in another org here, some newer things that we brought in. If we go back to, hang on a second. If we come back into that check-in email template, I want to point out something with our trust layer here. If I run this, actually I'm in a different org here with some different settings turned on with our trust layer. If I run this for Lauren Bailey, we've got some new features around data masking. What data masking does is there may be some things that are in your org that are sensitive that you don't want to send outside the building, that you don't want to send out to a large language model. We can see here when some of these things got resolved, like sender name or company name, we change it to person 1 or person 0. We're able to put placeholders in, and we'll send those placeholders to the LM instead, and when it comes back, we'll swap it back in. So we can see in our masking details here, we picked up some of these things, and when it came back, we put the real values back in. And this is configurable. This is configurable in our Einstein setup. If you go into the trust layer, you have some options here of what types of data you want to look for, whether it's a pattern. If you have field sensitivity set up, like if I go to, I know we're running out of time here, If I go into the contact, the title field on a contact, if I have that set to confidential, this is basic object manager stuff. If I come back into my trust layer settings, I could say, hey, mask everything that's confidential. We have some great capabilities here. The last thing I want to show you, I know we're at time, this is a good one. If I come back to check-in, this we just recently added. I know a big part of large language models is the language part, right? What languages can we work with? So we know we've had a lot of requests from our customers, when can I use more languages? We started with a set, I think it was 6 languages, we added 4, and we've just recently introduced the capability to go beyond our officially supported languages and use global languages. So basically what we're allowing you to do here is use any language that Salesforce recognizes. If you ever go to our help page and you see a giant list of the user-supported language, full supported language, platform languages, you can use any one of those. So if I come down and I want to check something like, let's allow Greek on this template, I can come down now and I should have Greek available. I can select that for my preview. And when that response comes back, we'll see it's in Greek. So it's important with some of these global languages you make sure that you test. That's why we have this capability here, because Salesforce is not doing anything extra to make sure that that response comes back just right. With our officially supported languages, we have a little bit of extra handling. But this is a great capability that we know a lot of our folks, or a lot of our customers have been asking for, and we're really happy to bring this out. So I think we're at time here. I know we're over, I apologize. There's a couple more slides I wanted to show, but in the interest of moving on, we wanted to show something with multimodal capability that's rolling out this week, where now you can input a file or a PDF document or an image into your prompt and send that to some of the models as well. We also have the capability for using data model objects as an input. We also want to make sure you have, I'm trying to get my slide deck back up here. I apologize where that guy went. Oh, is this it? Oh, look at that. We have packaging as well. This is a big one for our ISV friends, for people who are building out packages that want to include prompt templates. We have this available. This has just come out. The data model objects I just mentioned, and coming soon. So this is where we refer you back to that safe harbor slide at the beginning, the forward-looking statement. These are some of the things that Prompt Builder has coming. If you want to take a snapshot, if not, I'm happy to talk to you upstairs at the Prompt Builder demo. We've got a lot of good stuff. And go check out, please, our AI use case library. We have this on our help site. If you get that QR code, this is a lot of good information to help you get started building out prompt templates and AI use cases. So hopefully, I know we had some technical difficulties, but hopefully we're able to breeze through that, and you got a feel for kind of how powerful Prompt Builder is, and it's really approachable, right? I mean, if you can build the formula, you're way ahead of the game. You can build the prompts and just run those tests right there. You can see the resolution and the response and play with some models. And remember, a prompt template is just an invocable action. So anytime you want to have a piece of generated content, all you have to do is call that prompt template from Apex, from Flow, et cetera. So thanks so much for coming, everyone. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.